I was a new nurse at an old hospital and had only been working there for a couple of months. The hospital, with its creaky floors and dimly lit corridors, always gave me a sense of unease. But I was determined to prove myself as a competent nurse despite the eerie atmosphere. One night I was assigned to care for Mr. Thompson, an elderly man who had been admitted for pneumonia. As I entered his room, I noticed he was staring intently at the corner of the room, his eyes wide with fear. "Mr. Thompson, is everything all right?" I asked, trying to hide my apprehension. He turned to me, his voice trembling. "There's a girl standing in the corner. She's been there for hours just watching me." I glanced toward the corner, but saw nothing except shadows cast by the flickering light. "There's no one there, Mr. Thompson. It must be your imagination." But he shook his head vigorously. "No, she's real. She's been haunting me since I got here." I reassured him as best as I could, but his fear was palpable. Throughout the night he would glance nervously at the corner, muttering about the ghostly girl. As the hours passed, an unsettling feeling crept over me. I couldn't shake the sensation that we were not alone in the room. Every so often I would catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned to look, there was nothing there. As the clock struck midnight, I decided to check on Mr. Thompson again. But when I entered his room, he was no longer there. Panic surged through me as I frantically searched the room, but he was nowhere to be found. Just then, a chilling breeze swept through the room, causing the hairs on the back of my neck to stand on end. I turned toward the corner and saw her, the ghostly girl that Mr. Thompson had spoken of. She was pale and translucent, her eyes hollow and empty. She stared at me with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I wanted to run to flee from the room and never looked back, but something held me in place, a morbid curiosity mingled with a sense of duty to my patient. "What do you want?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. The ghostly girl tilted her head slightly, as if considering her response. Then, in a voice that sounded like it came from the depths of the grave, she spoke. "I am trapped here, cursed to wander these halls for eternity, but you can help me." Her words sent a chill coursing through my veins. "How can I help you?" I asked. She beckoned me closer, her spectral hand outstretched. "Find the locket. It holds the key to my freedom. Find it and set me free." I hesitated, unsure whether to trust the ghostly apparition before me, but something in her eyes, a desperation mingled with sorrow, compelled me to listen. "Where can I find the locket?" I asked, my voice barely steady. She pointed toward the hospital's abandoned wing, a place rumored to be haunted by restless spirits. With that, she vanished into thin air, leaving me alone in the darkness. Determined to uncover the truth, I ventured into the abandoned wing of the hospital. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay, sending a shiver down my spine. As I made my way toward the attic, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows danced along the walls, whispering secrets long forgotten. Finally, I reached the attic and began my search. Boxes piled high with old medical equipment and yellowed patient records lined the walls, creating a maze of forgotten relics. But amidst the chaos, I spotted it, a small tarnished locket nestled among the debris. With trembling hands, I reached out and grasped it, feeling its weight in my palm. As I held the locket, a sense of foreboding washed over me. I knew that by opening it, I would unleash forces beyond my comprehension. But I also knew that it was the only way to fulfill my promise to the ghostly girl. With a deep breath, I opened the locket, revealing a faded photograph inside. It was of a young girl, her face filled with innocence and joy. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the attic, sending me reeling backward. I looked up to see the ghostly girl standing before me, her form flickering in and out of existence. "You've done it," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din. "You've set me free." As she spoke, a blinding light enveloped her, illuminating the attic in an otherworldly glow. And then, with a final wisp of smoke, she vanished into the ether, leaving behind only silence. I stood there alone in the attic, the weight of what had just transpired settling over me. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, there was also a sense of peace, for I had helped a soul find redemption, and in doing so had discovered a strength within myself that I never knew existed. I'm 23 years old. My name's Jake. My girlfriend Natalie and I love exploring abandoned places. We find it thrilling to walk through places that are long forgotten, each step echoing with the whispers of the past. But nothing could prepare us for what we encountered that fateful night at the old haunted hospital. It was a chilly autumn evening when we decided to explore the abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the decrepit building. Ivy climbed the walls and broken windows stared out like empty eye sockets. Despite its ominous appearance, we couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. As we approached the entrance, a sense of unease washed over me. I could feel the weight of the building's history pressing down on me like a heavy fog, but I pushed aside my apprehension, eager to satisfy our curiosity. The rusty gates creaked open as we stepped into the courtyard. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence was suffocating. We made our way through the overgrown weeds, our footsteps echoing off the crumbling walls. Inside the hospital was a maze of dark corridors and empty rooms. Each step we took sent shivers down my spine, as if we were intruding on something that should have remained undisturbed. Natalie clutched my hand tightly as we ventured deeper into the bowels of the building. The sound of our breathing seemed amplified in the stillness, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Suddenly, we heard a faint sound coming from somewhere nearby. It was like a whisper, barely audible above the sound of our heartbeat. We froze, listening intently as the whisper grew louder, echoing through the empty halls. Without a word, we followed the sound, our hearts pounding in our chests. It led us to a staircase that spiraled down into darkness. With trembling hands, we descended into the abyss, our flashlights cutting through the shadows like knives. At the bottom of the stairs, we found ourselves in a dimly lit corridor lined with doors. Each one seemed to beckon to us, promising secrets and horrors beyond imagination. With a sense of dread, we began to explore, opening door after door in search of the source of the whisper. But as we delved deeper into the maze, like corridors, the whispers seemed to grow louder, filling the air with an almost tangible sense of dread. It was then that we realized we were not alone. Shapes moved in the darkness, flitting in and out of sight like phantoms. I could feel eyes watching us from the shadows, their gaze cold and unrelenting. And with each passing moment, the whispers grew louder, their words twisting and warping into something sinister. Panic clawed at my chest as we stumbled through labyrinthine halls, desperate to escape the unseen horrors that lurked in the darkness. But no matter which way we turned, the whispers followed us, their voices growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. Just when I thought we couldn't take it anymore, we stumbled upon a door. Unlike any other we had seen, it was old and weathered, its surface marred by years of neglect. But as we approached, the whispers grew deafening, filling the air with their cacophony of voices. With trembling hands, I pushed open the door, revealing a room bathed in an eerie blue light. Shadows danced across the walls, their movements fluid and unnatural. And in the center of the room, we saw it. A figure stood before us, its features shrouded in darkness. Its eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light, and its mouth twisted into a cruel smile. It was the source of the whispers, the embodiment of all the fear and dread that had haunted us since we set foot in this our said place. Without a word, Natalie and I turned and fled, our hearts pounding in our chests. We raced through the corridors, our footsteps echoing off the walls as we ran for our lives. And though we could still hear the whispers echoing in our minds, we refused to look back, determined to escape the horrors of the haunted hospital once and for all. As we burst through the gates and into the cool night air, we breathed a sigh of relief, grateful to be alive. But even as we put distance between ourselves and the abandoned hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed us out, something that would haunt our dreams for years to come. It was a scary night. My parents had left earlier for the hospital, leaving me home alone. Normally, I didn't mind being by myself, but tonight was different. Tonight, something felt off. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the glowing numbers on my alarm clock. It was past midnight, and the darkness outside seemed to seep into every corner of the house. I wrapped myself tighter in my blanket, trying to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. Suddenly I heard it, a faint whisper barely audible over the howling wind. "My name is Tom, and it's called drifting up from downstairs." My heart skipped a beat and I froze in terror. Who could be calling my name at this hour? My parents wouldn't be back for hours, and I didn't have any friends nearby. I strained my ears, listening intently for any other sounds. The house was eerily silent, except for the occasional creaks and groans of its aging structure. I hesitated, debating whether to investigate or stay put in the safety of my room. Curiosity and fear whirred within me, but ultimately curiosity won out. I had to know who or what was calling my name. With trembling hands, I slipped out of bed and tiptoed to my bedroom door, peering into the dimly lit hallway. I took a deep breath and summoned all the courage I could muster. Slowly, I descended the stairs, each step echoing loudly in the silent house. The air grew colder with every step, sending shivers down my spine. As I reached the bottom of the staircase, the whisper came again, louder this time. "Tom." It sounded closer now, as if it were right around the corner. I swallowed hard, my throat dry with fear. Steeling myself, I rounded the corner and entered the living room. The room was bathed in darkness, illuminated only by the pale moonlight filtering through the curtains. I squinted into the shadows, searching for any sign of movement. That's when I saw it, a figure standing by the window, its silhouette stark against the moonlit backdrop. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached cautiously, my footsteps barely making a sound on the carpet. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure didn't respond, but I could feel its gaze boring into me, cold and unrelenting. With a trembling hand, I reached for the light switch, flicking it on in one swift motion. The room flooded with light, illuminating the figure before me. It was nothing, just a coat rack draped with my parents' coats, swaying gently in the breeze. I let out a shaky sigh of relief, feeling foolish for letting my imagination run wild. But then I heard it again, the whisper closer now, right behind me. "Tom," it hissed. A chilly air shot down my spine. I whirled around, but there was nobody there. Just empty space and the faint sound of the wind outside. Panic seized me then, and I bolted for the front door, desperate to escape whatever unseen presence haunted our house. But as I reached for the door knob, a cold hand gripped my shoulder, sending shock waves of terror through my body. I spun around to face my attacker, but again there was nobody there. Just an empty hallway stretching out before me like a corridor of nightmares. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet as I tried to flee. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl emanating from the darkness. It was a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard before, primal and full of menace. I scrambled to my feet, my heart racing as I backed away from the unseen threat. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the growling stopped. The house fell silent once more. The only sound the pounding of my own heart in my ears. I stood there frozen in terror, unsure what to do next. Then I remembered the phone. I had to call for help. With trembling hands I fumbled for my cell, dialing my parents' number with shaking fingers. But as the phone rang on the other end, I realized something chilling. The voice that answered was not my mother's or father's. It was the voice from downstairs, the one that had been calling my name all along. "Tom," it said, sending a shiver down my spine. "You shouldn't have come looking for me, Tom. Now you're mine." And with that, the line went dead, leaving me alone in the darkness with whatever unseen horror lurked in the shadows. I sank to my knees, tears streaming down my face as I realized the truth. I was not alone in the house, and whatever was with me, it was hungry for more than just my name.